Okay, guys, we're going to go ahead and get started. But first of all, I just want to say thank you to everyone for joining our webinar on why you should be a tech company. And this video is going to be particularly for video analytics. So our webinar is a part of a series, and this is the first part to the series. So hopefully you're so excited about this that you go ahead and sign up for our other webinars. But if you are interested in joining any of the future webinars, you can easily go to bpcs.com, and under our event section, you can take a look at all of the webinars we have coming up. Our second one will be in April, and that will be led by Eric Vogelpohl, and it will be on the topic of modern data estate. We're super excited about that, but let's kick things off with our first one. So I wanted to give a quick introduction on who we have on the call. So my name is Ruthie Senanayaka, and I am the events manager here at Blueprint, and I will be running this webinar. We also have Gary and Megs. And if you have any questions later on, you can connect with us on LinkedIn, or you can also connect with us via email at info@bpcs.com. But we are super excited about this webinar series, and we are really passionate about technology. If you don't know much about Blueprint, we are a technology solutions company, and we're really passionate about making things as easy as possible for you with the use of technology. And we're going to deep dive into video analytics and how your company can really leverage some awesome tools. So if you have any questions throughout this webinar, feel free to add a question into the Q&A section, and we will make sure to get that answered for you as soon as possible. But we will be answering questions toward the end, so just hold on for your question to be answered. And then if you have a question afterward, again, you can email or connect with us on LinkedIn. But without further ado, I will pass things along to Gary and Megan.
Nice. Thanks, Ruthie. So how's everyone doing? My name is Gary Nakanalua. And of course, Megs, you want to give a really quick introduction about you?
Megan Novak, been at Blueprint for a while now. Super excited to be here today. So.
Nice. So first thing, because this is a webinar about video analytics, we are going to be showing some videos to y'all. Hopefully through the magic of Zoom, it will come through really well. But if there are questions or it stutters or something strange due to the internet, please let us know. Really quick about what Megs and I do in the department that we're in. So we work a lot on the experimentation side of the house, trying out a lot of different things, imagining what the world will be like 3 to 5 years from now, and then start figuring out what can be done today by organizations to put them on a path towards that future. And so there's a few different things that we're going to show you. Our own path, for example, when it comes to video analytics, and the paths of some of our customers as well. We won't use them by name, but we will kind of give you insight into the industry they're in and their real world use cases. Meg, did I miss anything on that?
Nope.
Awesome. So at a high level, we say, cool, you should be a tech company, right? And what exactly does that mean? One of the things to consider is part of the power from being a tech company. It's actually using technology to directly impact the P&L, right? Whether it's from cost savings, actually creating new revenue streams. Like as a tech company, like you have the ability to turn just about any aspect of your business into an asset. And so you'll kind of see some of that as it relates to video today. So as a starting point, oftentimes when we mention video analytics, people think about a retail scenario and loss prevention, right? And it's valid, right? But in that scenario, a lot of times what it requires is a separate team or individuals to essentially observe and take action based upon whatever they catch happening in real time in the video. So, but as a tech company, you can actually think about it a little bit differently. And what if you took those those video feeds, and you actually converted them into a data stream. And so we presented at Microsoft Ignite one of our solutions referred to as a Reflect, and we applied it in this scenario. It's a lost property scenario where a laptop came up missing. And because we do a lot of experimentation, we actually ran this scenario within our own four walls, or our campus footprint, I should say. And so I'll show you all what that looks like, and I'll play the video of what we use at Ignite, and then I'll kind of talk through it a little bit so you all will get to see it. So it is this one. And let me share my screen. Me and Zoom, we don't get along all the time. And share. And now. Oh, there we go. Found it. Okay. Now you all should see lots of things going on the screen, I hope.
Yeah, we do.
Perfect. All right. So here I'm going to play this and I'm going to talk through it so you'll get to see it. So what you're looking at is a very specific instance of Reflect. A laptop was reported as stolen. So what we're going to do is first we're going to point Reflect towards where the videos are stored from our loss prevention cameras. And so here I'm loading up an image of the missing laptop. And what I'm doing is running it against Reflect, and it's looking through all the video and it's trying to find that object, not an individual, but the object. So now, based upon all of that, it has determined where it believes the last sighting is at. So here we've narrowed it down. You can see there at the bottom, the digital evidence locker. Those are the relevant videos where that particular object, it believes it has been identified. So that's me. As you can see, I've got the laptop and I'm handing it to the president of our company. And so what Reflect is doing is creating all these correlations about what it knows or what it's observing about this particular object. So you can see here, no harm, no foul, just handing the laptop to the founder and president. Oh, but here's all the things. And so what it's trying to do is figure out, cool, I have now identified that object going into another object, which is very key. So this isn't about people, it's about object to object type of thing. And so then it's going to move on and it's going to say, okay, it's not in this clip, but this clip at the bottom, it last identified that that object was at another location, and then it sends out a notification accordingly. So we presented that at Ignite, and that was a lot of fun to put together, just across the board, just from the scenario up through actually like getting the tech together and things like that. Now that kind of applies to that normal sort of, oh, we can catch, or prevent loss if it were. But there's actually other things that you can do, because once you move into that concept of converting video into a data feed and then feeding it into different systems and things about that and thinking about it in those terms, there's a lot more that you can do with that. So Megs, you want to talk a little bit about that transition that we made from that into an operational aspect?
Yeah, definitely. So like Gary mentioned, loss prevention is obviously kind of where the brain goes to when you think video analytics in retail. But so a few years ago, we had a really cool opportunity to use it to demonstrate the power of just improving customer service and sales within the retail environment. Excuse me, sorry. So we had some data scientists on an engagement with a retailer within the coffee space. And the company wanted to use advanced video analytics to better understand the operational efficiencies within their stores. So I don't know if anybody out there has worked either on a coffee line or in the back of the house of a restaurant, but you know that the smallest movements and the grill being far away from, the spatula or whatever, those little repetitions and tasks make a huge difference in getting food out on time to a customer that's either happy or upset and getting comped by a manager. And it's no fun to be the server that has to deliver that message either. So, so similarly, the company knew that operationally, if they could improve the efficiency of some of their tasks within the customer order sequence, that directly equated to increased revenue, that time savings. So we went in and used their existing security camera video and flipped the script a little bit and said, if we can determine which shops are the most efficient based on layout, customer traffic, employee movements, we can improve that overall experience. And so what our team ran into, unfortunately, was we had some challenges getting all the data that they needed. So what we did is internally, we set up a really cool experiment that we lovingly call Brewprint. And we set up our own coffee shop within our headquarters to simulate the rush of the morning coffee run. And so we hired some of our own folks within our marketing and accounting departments. They had some college barista experience. So they were our pourers and our cashiers. And so we ended up actually testing out 2 different layouts across 2 different times where we thought we're going to be the busiest and get the most traffic. And then just some other things that align to the company's use cases. But the cool thing is within those 2 one-hour sessions, we were able to get 60 gigs of video from 3 different cameras, one being a 360. So we just got to see what was the most efficient and what wasn't, and just some of those things in real time that you take for granted that actually matter within getting coffee to a customer and having them happy at the end of it. So while it wasn't the exact video within the company, they were still able to translate those learnings to improve their operational and customer experience.
Exactly. And while we can't show you the specific implementation we did for that particular customer, we are allowed to share with you all an implementation we did very similar with a retail company. They were one of our early Lighthouse customers for this solution. And so I will bring this one up for y'all. This time I have learned the error of my ways when it comes to sharing screen on Zoom. So now you all should see. Yes, I'm hoping. So what you're looking at here as I play this, this is a look at a mattress company, and this is actual video from them. And what we're doing is we're identifying people entering into the store first and foremost. Now, the reason why this is so important is because it was amazing to us how well they understood the ideal customer experience that they wanted. And so I'm going to come back to a little bit really quick. What they knew is they needed to greet the customer within 1 minute of entering the store. It was incredibly important. And then after that greeting, they needed to give the customer a specific period of time to sort of wander around. And in their particular case, it was 5 minutes. And then they needed to re-engage. And then the engagement from there should, on average, last roughly 15 to 20 minutes. This was incredibly important to them because this experience between the customer and the employees resulted in the optimal sales cycle, where it was just enough time where people felt that they could come in and look around without being hassled, but they felt like they were important to the employees that were there. And so what you're going to see is as this kind of makes its way around. So it's going to come, that's the first video. And then because of the way that their store is laid out, they have multiple cameras. So this is the same customer. And now you can see this interaction happening with the employee. So awesome event happened. And then we're looking to see how long that interaction occurred. And so you can kind of see that they're going, and then it's tracking them across the way from a perspective like, okay, what's going on, things like this. And this is really, really, really important. And what this company was able to do is take all of this and actually refine their training for all of their stores so that they could demonstrate, here's the ideal interactions that should occur. Here's when you should do this, so you can kind of see now, based upon where they were going at the store. Oh, I stopped it. But the next part of it was the Power BI dashboards, that because we have taken that video feed and we've converted it into a data asset, we're now able to take that data and feed it in for reporting purposes, for example. So there's a whole set of Power BI dashboards that is used to show the impact of that experience directly on sales, which was just a really, really cool experience to go through with that team. From there, Megs, you want to talk about or kind of speak a little bit about the next level stuff that the video analytics can kind of take us into?
Yeah, thanks. So with all of these previous examples, the customer typically knew what they wanted, right? There was an outcome that they were looking for, and they thought that video analytics could solve for it, and we just helped them get there. We were approached by an intelligent customer in the federal space that actually did not want to use their video analytics, or they didn't want to use video for analytics. And they knew what their outcome was, but they didn't really think that video was going to be the thing to get them there. And so this customer, their goal in life is to analyze and monitor specific locations and areas of interest across the world. And so they have analysts they have access to all of this video, but the video was in archival systems and it's painstakingly slow to access. And it just, to them, it was a waste of their time. And so they could spend it somewhere else to get the information that they needed. And so our team came in and said, hey, we can actually not only speed up your process and give you a better experience, but then we can help you make your world easier and augment what you're already doing, as opposed to just giving you something else that's going to make it harder. So Gary, I don't know if you want to elaborate and then just demo and elaborate, whatever.
Or all of the above.
All of the above.
Well, it's a really good point too that Megan spoke to. In this case, we weren't looking to eliminate the need for people. Like that's not what it was about. It was about augmenting the capabilities of not only the existing workforce, but the future workforce, because they very much have identified that the need for human analysts will never go away, nor should it. But based upon their current workloads, the scale at which they would need to increase that workforce was astronomical. So trying to figure out ways to augment analysts to do their job faster, cheaper, insert every adjective you can think of, was incredibly, incredibly important. And it was also around the scenario of tell us what we don't know. It was an interesting note as we were immersing ourselves with that team. One of the leads on the team, he made a comment. He goes, we're really good at finding answers. We have to work harder at figuring out what questions to ask. And one of those questions was, where else should I be looking if I observe certain behaviors here, right? So that led to, in partnership with Microsoft, creating a platform called Nash, which I will show for you all now. And I'll just kind of walk through it and take questions from there. Let's see. So you all should see Nash here.
Yep, we see that.
Awesome. So first thing, what we want to do with Nash was we created the concept of, not created, but in the context of Nash, we use this concept of workspaces, where we imagined what would it be like if an analyst were paired up with a data scientist. They sat side by side and they worked together. What would be the kind of questions? What would be the conversations they would have? How would the data scientists look at the world versus the analysts? And how do we kind of bridge that gap? And so first came up the concept of workspaces. And so I'll just kind of load one up here. Let's go with this one. So I'm going to play this really quick. So what you're lking at is, traffic footage and there's someone doing a donut in the middle of the intersection, it's an interesting behavior, I should say, that's going on. And the first thing that happens is Nash is detecting all the objects in the video. In this case, the machine learning models involved are targeted towards specific vehicle types. So it's identifying all the objects in the video. And then it starts looking at and identifying different behaviors and events that are occurring in the video. And I'll go into detail about that here in a moment. And this is where the data science aspect really comes into play. And then from there, based upon those events and behaviors, now it starts doing anomaly detection. Like, what are the things that happen outside of the norm? And then based upon the events and behaviors that it observes and the anomalies that get detected, it starts recommending other videos that you should look at where similar events and behaviors and anomalies are identified. And so it's designed in order to help you understand where you should be looking elsewhere, even if you didn't know that that existed. Because in the context of this particular group, people are assigned areas of interest and they don't necessarily overlap, right? It's very similar to, earlier we talked about the loss prevention scenario. Well, you can imagine if I'm a big box retailer, I've got lots of locations in a given city, and there are certain events and behaviors that are happening at one store. That store staff is very focused on that. Meanwhile, there's another store all the way across town. They're observing similar behaviors or the start of those behaviors. And those two stores don't necessarily interact with one another on that regard. So it could have been that the first store who had identified this actually seen the start of, maybe it was, some crazy crime ring that was starting off. And they didn't realize that there were other stores that were starting to experience similar events and behaviors. And so those types of scenarios are going, cool, I'm observing something here and here and here and here and all these other places. And then bringing that up so that the human can look at it and start to correlate if these things two come together. This is usually this is an interaction that's interesting for me because this is usually where I pause. I'm like, cool, anybody got any questions? But Ruthie was like, nope, save all your questions for the end, which is fine. So another thing about Nash, which was, and Megan alluded to this, the agency itself, video analytics wasn't necessarily new to them. For years, they had been working with video or trying to integrate it into the workflow, but it was cumbersome and it took a really long time. And to achieve the speed that they needed, it was going to require a significant capital expenditure just consistently over time. And so as part of Nash, kind of behind the scenes and part of the secret sauce is this complete cloud-based video processing pipeline, which you're kind of seeing here. Every step along the way in this pipeline, it gets broken up into parts and pieces because, again, going back, when we think about video from a tech company perspective, it's not a file per se, it is a data stream. And when we change that thinking around that, we can start doing a lot of interesting stuff with it. So we start breaking up that stream into parts and pieces so we can process them in parallel. Because it's on the cloud, we can actually scale up the entire infrastructure to get to the speed that we need insights for. So every step along the way, you can see all the different segments in the pipeline, how long it took, everything that happened. And it puts the entire, it puts the control of the processing of those analytics in the hands of the organization themselves. And then from just a sheer earlier, you may recall I was talking about what it look like for a data scientist and an analyst to work together. This right here, it starts giving the analyst control over that conversation. So here are all the different types of events and behaviors, for example, that an analyst can look at, understand what it means and go, oh, I actually care more about surges occurring. cool. And being able to adjust it, rerun it, and then see if similar events and behaviors occur, if different anomalies occur. So it puts the control in their hands. Corey Hennon, who's on the call right now, he was one of our amazing data scientists that worked with this mission, which was a lot of fun. So yeah, they kind of wrap up, at least from a Nash perspective, and really in general, when it thinking about your company as a tech company, it doesn't mean you need to get away from your core mission. That's not what's being suggested, but it is about rethinking how you do things across the board, and figuring out how can you do things faster, and then also take those learnings, bring them out, again, new revenue streams and things like this. And so our approach, or our view about video analytics, is based very much on, you don't have to make a significant investment in hardware and things like that. In fact, you probably already have what you need. These solutions and video analytics in general, just the state of tech today, being able to take advantage of what you already have and convert it by thinking about it a little bit differently, will put you on a wonderful path to being a tech company. And so with that, I will shut up and take any questions that folks have.
Awesome. If anyone has any questions to ask, feel free to add them to the Q&A section, and we will make sure to answer them. So just going to see if we have any that come through.
This is that awkward moment where I always wish someone would break out and dance while people like type their questions.
Like that?
There you go.
Okay, I had a question that came through just in a personal chat. And it said, what did you use for video for your model?
Oh,
I was thinking that too. I was like, we should probably talk about that.
So in Nash, so Megan had talked about when we were working on the sort of productivity optimization, we created an environment and recorded it that way. On the Nash side of the house, we needed a lot of video. And unfortunately,
We did not have it.
We did not have it. We would not get access to it for a number of reasons. So we actually generated it, and we did different searches and things like this. And finally, we just decided, well, we need to create it. And we tried a few different systems. Microsoft had a couple that they've used in the past for training AI models for their self-driving cars initiative. But what we found to be most beneficial was actually we used a video game named Grand Theft Auto Online, as a matter of fact. I don't know if a lot of people realize this, but that game, it is probably one of the most realistic simulations of the city of Los Angeles that you can actually find. I mean, Rockstar, the company that makes that game, they actually just sent a bunch of people out to Los Angeles, like literally like capturing video, taking pictures. And so if you've ever been to California or and you actually kind of play that game, you'll end up in certain places where you're like, this seems really familiar to me. At least that's the feeling I got kind of like driving through. So that video I showed you all of the person in the donut, that's me, just, causing trouble in the intersection. But what it did is by thinking about it a little bit differently and going, cool, well, because we're training these models, we don't technically need like live video. We can generate it. So then we went down the synthetic data generation route. And so we just kept effectively playing video games in order to get the data that we needed to train our models, right? Yeah, darn.
Oh, darn. But the cool thing about it too, though, was that once it was in a place where we were saying we're done and it's trained, like on the testing side, we were taking traffic video from actual locations that were available online somewhere, say it's, Seattle or Miami or wherever. and running it through the models, and it was working just as it had. So we had that consistent synthetic video to start with, and then you could start plugging in, your own video if you're a customer or somebody who downloads it on your own.
Okay, fun question. How much did you enjoy making those videos, Gary?
Oh, I hated every minute of it. It was such a slog. Like, I was just like, oh, really? Do I have to run around in this video game and do this again? Really? No.
I'm sure.
It's a lot of fun. There is another question. Interesting. So the question is, could the video be combined with system data to assist and notify humans to take action? The short answer to that is yes, and we've done it on a number of occasions. The first example we gave, for example, the loss prevention with Reflect, that one, it moved its way. Once it could no longer find the object, it said, okay, well, here's where I think it is based on the last sighting. So now let me send a notification. And then it would send a text message. It said, last sighting, this location at this time. In the case of the retail scenario that we demonstrated, taking that video data and combining it with their sales data, their point of sale system, and then funneling that and visualizing it in Power BI is what we did there. And then in the case of Nash, we haven't yet incorporated other data, but the way that we architected the entire solution, that data, what you all witnessed was the experience we put together on top of the data, but underneath that entire platform, we actually expose it or make it available to the organization so they can consume it in other systems that they have. And so we've got one of our flagship products, Conduit, underneath that goes, cool, all of this video processing that we've done, we're storing the insights as part of the solution, and then we're exposing it. So if you want to plug it into Tableau or build a completely different experience and combine it with, maybe there's, social data, for example, is a really good one, right? So I take this video data, combine it with social data, and now I have a whole other experience. So yes. And then Coral, if a company often deletes its video after a while, true, how much do they need to have on hand in preparation for experimenting with this type of video analytics? That's a beautiful question. So they don't have to. So when the question about how we trained our models is interesting. So from an implementation perspective, if you know that you want to, there's a scenario that involves vehicles, for example, we can train the models accordingly, separately. And then from that point moving forward, all of the video that you're collecting can retrain and refine the models along the way. Because that's part of the beauty too. Like as a tech company, when you're harnessing tech, it actually gets better over time. It's kind of like wine, even though I don't drink a lot of wine. I'm just saying, like, wine gets better with age. The best tech in the world is the same way, right? Like, think about it, like Netflix is better today than it was when it first came out. Google is better today, regardless of how you may view about their views of the world. Just saying, from a technology and search perspective, it's better today than it was back then. So it gives you the archival piece that companies go through now, because they're just sort of hoarding this video, like in case something comes up and they go, well, can't do anything with it, so dump it, it's just taking up space. Now we can actually assign and create value from those assets, and then moving forward you can keep it and keep retraining, refining your stuff. This is an interesting one. Megs, you want to take this one for a moment? How would/could you see video analytics being applied to space planning as orgs are trying to decide if and when and how to return to the office?
Yeah, I mean, this is totally in that operational space, right? Is, you have your layouts and you have videos that are already video that's already in your offices, probably from a loss prevention standpoint, security standpoint, and you can track, whether it's historical or what you want it to look like going forward. Historical traffic of where do people operate, or where do people walk most? Where do people gather most? You know, and you can start to find patterns in, well, nobody actually uses this space, so maybe we could do this with it and sit people 6 feet apart, and it's going to keep them away from this section that's a little bit more high traffic, and then we could space this out. But from that, you know, layout perspective, you'd be able to see those patterns and trends.
Awesome. Thanks so much, guys. I'm just going to wait just a couple more seconds to see if we have any other questions that come through.
And on that last question, some of you may have heard of this idea called design lines, right? Where when a very large campus is being built, you know, there's fields and things like this, and planners are trying to figure out where to put sidewalks, for example. And a technique they will use is they actually won't put any down, and they'll just grassy areas, and they will observe over time how people just naturally move from space to space and then adjust accordingly. So to Megan's point, kind of understanding those hot spots, areas that are underutilized, where people tend to congregate. Some of you may have seen, you know, there's a pretty interesting application within video analytics of detecting if people have masks on, for example, or if they're social distancing, right? Now, what an organization chooses to do with that information is up to them, but the awareness of it and going, okay, 80% of our people enter through here, 20% of them actually socially distance, 75% actually are wearing masks when they come in. How do we adjust that? How do we keep people spaced out, because they tend to congregate over here at the kitchen around these particular things? And it's meant to inform, not necessarily to enforce, which is a key point as well.
Great, thank you so much. So I think that's all the questions we've had for today. But if you have any further questions, you can just email Gary or Megan, or connect with us on LinkedIn. Make sure you follow our social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever platforms you're on. That way you will be the first to know when we have one of our new events coming up. And just a quick reminder that this was part 1 of our series of why you should be a tech company. And our second part is going to be coming out in April, so keep an eye out for that. And all of that will be posted on social media. We will send you an email today or tomorrow, depending on when the recording comes through, but just with the recorded version of this webinar, so you can share with your colleagues or whoever you'd like to. And if you have any further questions, again, you can also email info@bpcs.com and visit our website, bpcs.com, for more information. But thank you guys so much for joining, and thank you, Gary and Megan, so much for all of your insights, and we really appreciate it. We hope everyone has an awesome rest of your week.
Thanks, everyone.
So thanks, guys.